Ben Llewellyn, and today I'm talking about the Welsh language. Some quick tips to help you get a better grasp on that. If you haven't yet, hey, subscribe to my channel and hit like. Thanks. As someone who learned Welsh myself, I know that it can be fairly intimidating with which gender the word is, or the noun. Is it masculine or feminine? How do you tell? Because in Welsh, the gender of a word determines a lot about how the language is shaped. Let me give you an example here. T is the word for house. T-D. It means a black house. But if I was to say a black feather, plien-the. And it also gets more complicated with the adjectives. Some of them have feminine forms. One of my favorite is the one for round, is trum when it's masculine and trom when it's feminine. And so it helps for your enjoyment of the language and to be able to use it as well if you know which words affect the adjectives after them in which way. Welsh is really consistent. All languages have to be consistent, even English, which is the odd one out when it comes to genders. If you think about it, Hindi in India, Gujarati, these languages have masculine and feminine. Greek, Russian, Spanish, German, all these languages are related to English and they have masculine and feminine. Welsh does too. And like each of the other languages I just mentioned, there are indicators which tell you that this word that you're looking at is probably masculine or feminine. So here are 10 tips for telling that. So the first tip is fluids and plants. Fluids, all fluids in Welsh are masculine. Cwrw, beer. Cwrw gola, lager. Gwaed, blood. Môr, the ocean. Llaeth, milk. Olew, oil. Vinegar, gwin, wine. Every single fluid I have come across in Welsh is masculine, except river, afon. And if you know the exceptions, it will be a lot easier. Now, I don't know why fluids are all masculine in Welsh. There's no logic in my mind, but it helps. It could be because fluids water plants, and that brings us to the next one. Most plants in Welsh are feminine. In fact, I pretty much think every tree that I've come across is feminine. Derwen, oak. There are some notable exceptions, like blodyn for flower. But when it comes to trees, derwen for oak, bedwen, birch, feminine. Fawyddan, beech, feminine. Helygen, a willow tree, feminine. You get the idea. The second tip for identifying the gender of Welsh nouns is feminine nouns for abstract concepts. They almost always end in I-A-E-T-H or A-E-T-H. This is not constricted just to abstract concepts, but you get the idea with some of these. Newyddiaduriaeth, journalism. Cerddoriaeth, music. Llenyddiaeth, literature. Ieithyddiaeth, linguistics. I want to note the exception, as I mentioned in the last bit on fluids. Llaeth. Now, this is milk, and the way you can remember is that it's a fluid, so it's not feminine. The only other exception that I've come across recently is gwasanaeth, service. And the reason this is masculine is because the root word of that is gwas, meaning a servant boy or a lad. And so the long word service, which comes from that, is masculine. Overall, the words ending in aeth or iaith formulate from concepts to do with the humanities and learning. You also have more abstract concepts like amiraeth, interference. This extends to the religions, Cristnogaeth, Christianity, Iddewiaeth, Judaism, and so on. Because there's that abstract element there. So it's feminine. The third category are words which end in AD or IAD. And the way I remember this one is that tad, father, is masculine. Diddle-bod-hard, perseverance. Esboniad, explanation. This is also kind of an abstract ending, like the one we saw before with yaith, but it has a sense of more being grounded in earth in a way, a harder feel to it. A skutwad, a trauma, a shaking. Brad, treachery. Parhad, continuance. The most important exception for this rule is glad, which is in the national anthem of Wales, Hen Lad Fy Nhadau, the old country of my fathers. And so you'll see this word quite often, glad, and just note that that is feminine. And there's an easy way to remember that, because all countries in Welsh are feminine. Sometimes England, Lloegr, is used as a masculine noun, and that's probably from archaic forms which saw it as an insult. Given the history between these two countries, you can see why. Ehangiad, expansion, that is masculine as well. Atyniad, an attraction. Teimlad, a feeling. The fourth and fifth ways you can know almost immediately which gender a noun is in Welsh are the two diminutive forms. So the masculine diminutive form is yn. It can be used in the pejorative sense or a very dear sense, giving a nickname to. But let's go through some of the masculine ones. Bachin, book. Daegrin, a tear. Fevrin, your favorite or your dear little suck up. Gelin, your enemy. Corkin, the cork in a bottle. That's what it is. Blowin, a single hair. So you can see that these are usually small things, but it can be used toward people to make them more smaller or a piece of a group as well. Now the feminine one is equally in the same. It's en instead of yn. And you get words like tidollen for a page in a book. It's a piece of that book, but it's a small bit of it. Two exceptions to the masculine diminutive that you need to know is telin is the word for harp, and the harp is actually feminine despite having a yn ending. And perhaps the most important exception to this rule is blwyddyn, one of the two words for a year. So we don't say blwyddyn da, we say blwyddyn dda. That word is feminine. The sixth category are group nouns. These are usually feminine. So you get pobl, people, byddin, an army, hide, a throng or a swarm, that's feminine. Plaid, a party, is feminine. Caravan, a faction or a group, is feminine. And you can usually tell that by if it's a group of people and a word describing that. But you also get that like the swarm with hide, and it can be animals. But gyr, a group of goats, is not feminine. Diadech, a large flock of cattle, is feminine. A crowd, the way I remember this rule is the word for a crowd. Torf, this is feminine. Various kinds of crowds in Welsh are usually feminine. There are exceptions. The most notable is the word grŵp with the accent above the W. It's not really a Welsh word, but it's been kind of pushed into the language, and you find a lot of English words that have been assimilated into the language like this are masculine because they don't tend to fit in with the rules of Welsh grammar. The other main exception to this rule is lli, which is a host. The seventh category, which are really easy to detect in terms of which gender nouns are in Welsh, is the suffix fa. F sounds like a V in Welsh. The way I remember this rule is lolfa, which is the word for lounge or living room. Literally, it means the place where silliness happens. And what that FA denotes usually is the location of a place, the location describing that noun. that it's attached to. So you get sefyllfa, which literally together is standing place, but it literally means the situation that you're in. You get chwalfa, which is an upheaval of ruin. Hofrenidva, a helipad. Derbynfa, a reception. One of my favorites is amloskava, a crematorium. I'm not far from a horodva, an avenue. I don't think I can think of any exceptions to this rule. Pretty much every single word that ends in FA that I can think of is feminine. So that's one that's easy to remember. The next tip is words ending in ed or yd. Most of these words are masculine. Now this one is not going to be as concrete as the others. There are quite a bit more of the feminine nouns sprinkled among these, but overall these words are going to be masculine. Ysbryd is spirit, it's masculine. Penid is penance, masculine. Byd, world. Bwyd, food. Bywyd, a life. Credyd, credit. You get the idea. That one you're going to have to be careful with because there's many more words that are feminine that end with yd, but most of them are masculine. Here are two of those exceptions. Dedfryd, a prison sentence, is feminine. Ergyd, a blow or a shot, is feminine as well. The next one is about time and lengths of time. Days, months, and seasons are all masculine, so you got that out of the way. Dydd Gwener, Friday, that's masculine. Mis Awst, August, that's masculine. There's no exceptions there. On the other hand, nights, hours, centuries, these are all feminine. So there's a differentiation there in how they feel between the masculine and feminine in terms of time. The 10th tip is ell, the ending E-double-L. I love that sound. Most of these words ending in ell are feminine, and there's a reason for this grammatically actually, because many of these words, not all of them, and there are exceptions, come from Latin, which ended in e or ella, which changed over the time to ell. So you get padell, which comes from Latin. It is feminine. Pabell, for tent, also comes from Latin. That's feminine as well. You get llyfrgell, which is for library, and this is a bit odd because llyfr, which is book, is masculine. So you would expect the compound word to be masculine, but it's feminine. Ystafell, a room, is feminine. A skibell, a brush. Llinell, line. Ffynhonnell, source. These are feminine. And most of these words are going to be feminine, but there are exceptions. Porchell, a sucking pig, piglet, this is masculine. Castell, for castle, this is masculine. I hope these tips have been of help to you, and I hope that you can speak Welsh with a bit more confidence and that you feel more comfortable and also appreciate the language a bit more. If you have any questions about any of these tips, hey, leave that down below and I'll try and get back to you. And we will see you in the next episode. Diolch yn fawr am wylio. Thank you very much for watching.